Welcome to The Explainer. Today we are cracking open a major puzzle from ancient history. For, centuries, people have been debating this one central question about a legendary group of people. But now, well, thanks to modern science, the mystery is pretty much over.
So, who were these legendary Scythians? You've probably heard the name, right? The famous fierce nomads who dominated that huge stretch of land, the Eurasian steppe. For the longest time, though, where they came from and who they really were, well, that was a massive historical debate.
But here's the thing, that debate is basically settled now. Thanks to some absolutely incredible advances in fields like genetics, archaeology, and linguistics, the scientific community is now in overwhelming agreement about who the Scythians actually were. All right, let's dive right in. First, we'll set the stage. Then we're going to look at the three biggest lines of evidence. We're talking DNA, archaeology, and language, before we pull it all together for the final unified answer.
Okay, first things first, we really need to get a handle on the basic question here and the names involved. It all kind of starts with what other people were calling them.
And this is a super important first clue. You have two massive, powerful empires, the Greeks and the Persians, and they're both writing about the same groups of steppe nomads. They just use different names. So right away, we have multiple historical perspectives to work with, which is huge. Now, the idea that the Scythians had an Iranian origin, that's not exactly new. Scholars have suspected it for a long time, just based on reading old classical texts. But, a really good guess is one thing. Hard, solid proof? That's something else entirely. And that's exactly where modern science steps in. So let's get to our first pillar of evidence. This is where the story gets really amazing, because we can almost hear from the Scythians themselves, through their DNA. It's incredible what scientists can do now. They can go to these ancient burial mounds, these kurgans, and carefully take DNA from skeletal remains. And with that ancient DNA, they can literally piece together the history of a population and see who is related to who thousands of years ago. And the results? They have been so consistent, it's almost uncanny. You look at these huge landmark studies, and believe me, there are plenty of others, they all point in the exact same direction. It's like each study is adding another undeniable piece to this genetic puzzle. So here's the real kicker from the genetic evidence. It's not just some new, out-of-the-blue theory. It actually gives massive support to what historians had suspected along. The DNA is basically confirming the history books. Okay, so the DNA tells one heck of a story. But what about the stuff they left behind? The physical objects? Let's see if the artifacts dug out of the ground tell the same story as the genetics. Archaeologists do a lot more than just dig up cool-looking treasure. They look at everything, the tools, the art, the weapons, even how they buried their dead, all for clues about cultural connections. And in this case, the connections point clearly to a wider Indo-Iranian world, a huge cultural sphere that stretched all the way from Eastern Europe to India. And this is just a fantastic example of how different experts, all studying physical stuff from all over the steppe, end up at the same conclusion. Their work reveals this whole web of cultural ties that connects the Scythians right back to the broader Iranian-speaking world. And now for our third and final pillar of evidence. This one is maybe the trickiest of all, their lost language. It's kind of like trying to hunt for a ghost. So how in the world do you study a language that nobody has spoken for thousands of years and that barely left any written records? Well, linguists become detectives. They piece things together from names that the Greeks wrote down or words that were borrowed into other languages. And if they get really lucky, they find actual surviving texts. And in this case, the linguists didn't just get lucky, they hit the jackpot. Analyzing names and loanwords, that's a great start. But what they found next wasn't just another clue. It was like the Rosetta Stone for this whole mystery. The discovery of these Khotanese Saka texts was an absolute game changer. And we're not talking about a few words scratched on a pot here. These were real documents, Buddhist scriptures, medical texts, all sorts of records. It was like discovering a lost library. Suddenly, we had a full-on dictionary and grammar, and it provided rock-solid, undeniable proof that the Saka language was part of the Eastern Iranian language family. Okay, we've looked at the genetics, we've looked at the archaeology, we've looked at the linguistics. So now let's put it all together and see the final, crystal clear picture that science has given us. The real power of this answer doesn't come from any one single piece of evidence. It comes from the fact that all of them, all these independent lines of inquiry, ended up pointing to the exact same conclusion. That's when you know you're onto something solid.
And this table just lays it out perfectly. It's a great summary of the whole case. The genetics points to Iranian ancestry, the archaeology points to Iranian cultural connections, and the linguistics, it points straight to an Iranian language. I mean, it's a perfect match across the board. So there you have it. This is the definitive answer, and it's backed by a mountain of modern scientific research. The Scythians weren't just one single people, but this diverse collection of nomadic tribes, all united by a shared culture and, most importantly, a family of Eastern Iranian languages. But the big takeaway here isn't just a fact about the Scythians. It's about seeing how these totally different fields of science can come together and solve mysteries from the past, mysteries that we once thought were lost to time forever. It's pretty amazing. And that leaves us with a really exciting thought, doesn't it? This case might be closed, but it really makes you wonder, what long-lost chapter of human history is science going to uncover for us next?